Awake or not awake? Let's talk about relationships. Hi, I'm Saratoga Ocean. Welcome to my channel where I give you the knowledge you need to awaken and ascend with clarity and confidence. Now, if you've been following me, you can probably tell that my videos are progressive in nature. I don't tend to get stuck in one place and repeat the same thing over and over and over again. And that's because life is progressive. It constantly evolves and changes. And if we are interested in ascension, then we need to stay attuned to what is happening and respond accordingly. So that's what I want to talk to you about today. Are you ready for this, you guys? I think we need to retire this whole notion of who's awake and who's not awake. It's becoming too much like a religion and it's not really serving a useful purpose anymore. In fact, it's actually becoming very divisive and even in some cases fear-based. We don't have to get so attached to these words. I mean, it's great if they're serving a useful purpose, but when they start to take a downward turn, it's time to reevaluate. So let me give you an example. Just the other day, I heard a well-known spiritual influencer say the following. This person said that the lockdowns and the masks are really great because it makes it so easy to tell who's awake and conscious and who's not awake and conscious. So according to this person, anyone who wants to wear a mask or who wants to get that thing that they stick in you, you guys know what I mean, right? You're not allowed to say that here. Anyone who wants those two things, well, that's proof that that person is not awake and they are not conscious. And on the other hand, if a person doesn't want to wear a mask and they don't want to get that thing that I just mentioned, well, then that proves that that person is conscious and awake. Guys, have we actually been reduced to this? See, this is exactly how we are being unknowingly manipulated in the spiritual community by the controllers. Now, I'm not trying to say that the person who said this is a controller. I'm not trying to say that at all. I'm just saying that there's this mindset that's starting to develop that is being injected into the narrative without us really even paying attention to what is going on. And see, that way we just play right into their hands. See, we have to be really careful that we don't get unconscious ourselves and start to say things like, now that we're awake, we're really pretty smart and we don't really have to pay attention to everything quite as much. But we have to be so careful of that because if we're not careful, if we don't stay awake in the real sense of the word, we can unknowingly become like a different kind of sheep. See, the controllers are using the masks to try to get us to separate ourselves into different camps. I mean, I'm telling you guys, you have no idea the extent to which we are being manipulated. See, here's the thing. Everything about our lives as individuals, everything lives on the internet. Where you live, what your job is, literally everything about you is on the internet. And the AI algorithms are super, super smart. I mean, they are way smarter than humans. And those algorithms know everything about us. It's even gotten to the point where they can actually start predicting our thoughts. See, what you need to understand is that the internet is actually a gigantic learning machine. It has a virtually unlimited ability to acquire vast quantities of data and information and thus learn more and more about how we human beings operate. And this is all being constructed for the purpose of manipulating our behavior. I mean, this is one of the reasons that, as you may know, I chose to disassociate myself from the New Age. It's because, in my opinion, the New Age has been absolutely infiltrated with things that are designed to sabotage our human evolution and to shift us into an AI consciousness. See, wherever you see division being sown among humans on a large scale, then you can be pretty assured that we're being manipulated. So awake versus not awake has now become a divisive issue that is riddled with fear. It's like if you believe certain things, you are awake. And if you don't believe certain things, then you're not awake. Therefore, if you're awake, you will ascend. And if you're not awake, you will not ascend. And another version of this goes like this. If you're awake, you will ascend into 5D. And if you're not awake, you will stay in 3D. Sounds a little robotic, doesn't it? Guys, this is a joke. Ascension doesn't work like this, but religion does. You know, if you believe this, you're going to heaven. And if you don't believe this, you're going to hell. And did you notice how right before our very eyes, being awake became political? Oh, this was a fantastic piece of manipulation by the controllers. See, initially, the Great Awakening was all about ascension and about waking up to who you really are as a cosmic being. But then the controllers very cleverly hijacked that phrase and injected it into the political arena. And I kind of remember the time when that happened, and I was really surprised, like, the Great Awakening is political? So all of a sudden, the Great Awakening became about which side of the political spectrum you're on. I mean, you gotta hand it to these guys. They literally run circles around us when it comes to their ability to manipulate things. So what effect do you think that had to sabotage our ascension? Well, it was actually quite a brilliant chess move on the part of the controllers. They took all of our focus on real ascension and tied it up with political parties, with masks, and with lockdowns. Now that actually really messed people up. Because you see, on a deeper level, people kind of knew that couldn't really be true. You know, that the Great Awakening was suddenly about all that junk. But because that's how it was being framed, it's kind of like, well, they sort of had to find a way to make it true. So the best thing to do was just play along and decide that all of the political treachery and all of the truly evil stuff being done on this planet was really just a part of the ascension process. And suddenly now all that junk became a part of waking up. So then people had to find a way to make all that junk spiritually positive. You know, it wasn't even that long ago that the New Age was relatively benign. I mean, it was mostly about things like peace and positivity and personal growth. It was kind of a place for spiritual seekers to just find themselves. You guys remember those days? And I think in that sense, it was actually supportive and helpful. But it has now, because of the internet, it has been so infiltrated by AI, by the controllers, by mind control. It's almost like this weird kind of cauldron of confusion and politics and conflicting messages and negativity, spiritual gaslighting. There's a lot of fear. There's a lot of judgment. There's a lot of demands and thought control. So in my opinion, it's not exactly the most supportive environment, which is why I decided to exit that whole scene. But if you think about it, all of that was done solely through the internet. I don't think this could have happened if we were still in a world where all of our connections were face-to-face, physical, and completely human. See, here's something that you really need to understand. The internet is morphing into a giant AI planetary brain, and we are being absorbed into that brain. This has been the intention all along. Total control of us and of our human consciousness by a planet-wide AI form of artificial intelligence. So I want to say this, you cannot consult only with the internet to get your final answers about your life. You must consult with your heart. I mean, you can go to the internet to learn things, but you really need to be the one who makes the final decision about what is actually real for you. Do you understand that they can introduce anything they want into this AI brain right before your eyes and then get you to start thinking that way? I mean, they do it all the time. And now they are using it to literally destroy our human relationships. They're not just doing it with the masks and the lockdowns and social distancing. They are doing it by controlling our minds and how we see each other. So I want to say something to all of the people who are worried about their friends and family members who are supposedly not awake. You are being manipulated to emotionally separate and distance yourself from those you love or once loved or people you are connected to in some way under the guise of ascension. The original use of the word awakening has been basically destroyed. It is now being used as a tool of judgment, of sorting, and of separation. And I've been saying a lot lately that we have got to be very responsive to what is actually happening. We need to be responsive so that we can continue to move forward in our human evolution and in our ascension process. We cannot afford to just keep lying to ourselves that all of this is just okay because the correct words are being used. Now, I don't think people have any idea of the extent of the damage that has been done to our human species over this past year. Our natural energetic ties to each other are being broken and completely shredded. What's been done to us over the past year is the equivalent of attempting to destroy a massive ecosystem on this planet. That's the level of damage being done to the human species here on Earth. See, you must understand that AI does not have a heart. Artificial intelligence does not feel. It has no compassion and no love. It is completely empty of anything that we would recognize as being human. It can be programmed to mimic humans, but there's nothing human about AI. Now, we human beings naturally function together in a similar way as to an ecosystem in a forest. See, trees and plants in a forest communicate with each other. They have energetic ties and connections that are essential to their survival and to their well-being. And we as a human species are very similar in that way. We actually need each other. See, the controllers want to break that down. They are trying to destroy who you are as a natural human being. They want to remake you into an AI version of your former self. A part of that process means that they have to destroy your natural connection to other human beings. Just like the trees are to each other in a forest, the people in your life are a part of your support structure in terms of what makes you human. Whether your relationships are good or bad, you have always had some sort of human connection to people. And whether you chose to be around them or not be around them was still based on very personal and very human experiences. So this isn't necessarily about making absolutely sure that everyone you know stays in your life. It's more about not sorting people according to the current version of whether or not you judge them to be awake or not awake. See, the controllers want us to be as detached and as superficial as possible. They want us to sort our relationships in the same way that machines sort things in a factory. It's like, oh, you think this way, you're out. Or, oh, you think this way, then I can be around you. I mean, it's really robotic. Now, here's the truth. You cannot accurately judge what is going on inside of every person you meet in such a superficial way. First of all, what is happening inside of a person is usually extremely private. You can look at someone on the outside and think you have them all figured out. You can be absolutely wrong. I mean, you could be talking to a very awake person and not even know it because they are not disclosing that fact to you. And for anyone who is so worried about their children and their family members ascending or not ascending, I have an alternative for you. Why don't, instead of worrying about that kind of a sorting thing, which you have no knowledge of anyway, why don't instead you make an effort to get to know them better and learn to love them more? Stop trying to project what you think ascension is onto them. You're only going to make yourself and them very unhappy. I think you're going to be a whole lot happier if you just concern yourself with your own ascension process, because ascension is evolution. I mean, if all this ascension talk is causing you to tear yourself away from your natural connections to humanity, you're not evolving at all. You're actually devolving. You're actually becoming less human. So here's something you can do that is far more productive and far more in alignment with true human evolution. You can be a loving inspiration to the people around you, and you just might ignite for them the love in their hearts. See, because I don't care how much internet knowledge you have about Ascension, it's not going to help you if you're not fully centered in your heart. So helping others to find their hearts by being an example yourself is probably the very best thing you can do for your friends and family members. See, because sounding like some kind of a cult member is just going to produce more alienation. And that is exactly what the controllers want. They want you to sound like you belong to some kind of a freakish Ascension cult so that you will be rejected by the average person. See, they don't want anybody listening to you. They actually want total alienation. So you don't want to make their job easy by spewing out this hodgepodge of information that you got online and expect your friends and family to believe you. Instead, you could focus on building relationships of love and trust and thus preserving your humanity. Now, I also know that there are some people that are just really difficult to be around vibrationally. And I also know that there are people it is just not healthy to be connected to. But you can figure that out. So whatever you decide to do in terms of your relationships, just keep it human. I mean, let there be some depth to your decision. And for anyone in your life that you can have a loving relationship with, good grief, be grateful for that person. So to conclude this video, there's really basically just two things that I want to leave you with, two very simple messages. Don't lose your natural connection to other human beings. And secondly, don't let the internet control your thoughts and your spirituality. On both of these counts, make sure that you think for yourself, you reason things out for yourself, and you always stay connected to your heart, your intuition, and your inner wisdom. And always, always make your own decisions. You do not have to conform to anything you hear online. And that also, and I say this all the time, but I'll say it again, that also includes anything that you hear me say. You do not have to conform to anything or anyone that you hear online. And what this all comes down to, you guys, is to retain your inner strength. This is why I always say we really need to, I always say we need to approach this from an extraterrestrial perspective, which is really a cosmic perspective. We do not have to be so identified with everything happening on this planet. We can actually just stay oriented within ourselves, within our infinite divine selves, in such a way that we retain our humanity, we retain who we are, and we continue to evolve so that we can ascend in the real sense of the word, in the most natural sense of the word, in a way that is in alignment with the rest of the universe and with how the cosmos is really intended to function. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope it gave you a lot of food for thought. And if you benefited from any of this, please give this video a thumbs up and share it out with anyone else who you think would find this interesting. And be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell, because I am here every Sunday, Tuesday, and Friday with all new videos. And with that, I'm sending you loads of love, light, and positive energy. And I so look forward to seeing you in the next video. Namaste.